Hey guys, I am Mandy Moon and I'm a brand marketing consultant for sales teams, professionals, and entrepreneurs. And we're on day 4 of our 5-part series, How to Build Your Brand. I'm sharing all of the steps that I take my clients through when developing a brand foundation for them, a brand identity. And by the end of this series, you will have all of the information and everything that you need to know in order to create your own brand. So, let's recap real quick. Day one. Day one, we talked about creating your brand foundation around your founder story and your purpose story, how you got started and what keeps you going. On day two, we talked about the biggest mistake that businesses and brands make when it comes to developing their brand. The biggest mistake being they try to position themselves as the hero instead of taking the time to find their hero. And yesterday, day 3, we talked about positioning yourself as the guide. How to become Yoda, how to look like the perfect guide that your hero needs to get them to where they want to go. So at this point, you have all of the foundational things that you need. You have all of the pieces that you need in order to kind of position yourself as the perfect guide for your hero. But what but now what, right? What do you do with all of that? We have foundational pieces. Now what do we do? How do you get people to buy in to all of this stuff that you just put together? Well, we've all heard it before. Even though you might personally have the best product, the best service, the best business, the best customer service, the best, all of the knowledge in the world, people buy from people they trust, right? People buy from people they trust. So even if you say all of those things, and even if all of those things are true, how do you get people to trust you? How do you get people to buy in? So that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you get people to buy in? Now, many of the industries that I work with rely heavily on customer referrals. They rely heavily on long-term relationships. A lot of the professionals that I work with have been in the industry for a really long time and so have established trust simply by being in the industry for a long time. But what if you're new? What if you're a newer entrepreneur, you have a newer business? How do you establish trust? Now, there is a lot to say about putting the time, the energy, the effort, going through all of the ups and downs of building relationships, but we have the tools nowadays to accelerate that trust and connection process. So if you think about it this way, in the olden days, in the olden days before the internet, if you wanted to buy a car, for example, you would literally have to go into the dealership, you would talk to a salesperson, that salesperson would give you the features and the benefits of the car, and that salesperson could say things like, this is the best deal ever. This is the best deal. You're not going to find a deal like this. We're giving you a super discount, yada, yada, yada. And you would simply just have to believe them. You would have no way of knowing whether or not that information was true. You would just simply have to decide whether or not you trusted that person and decide whether or not you were going to buy the car. Well, nowadays, with the internet, you could literally check, you could fact check, you could check on Kelley Blue Book, you could check dealerships all over the area, you could check dealerships all over different states to check to see if that information was true. You could check all of that information before you even walked into the dealership, right? So you'd be equipped with knowledge before you would even walk in, so you would know whether or not you could trust that person. So what that means for sales and for us in all of these industries is that products have become vanilla, is how I like to say it. You can buy insurance from anyone, online, from any person. You can find a realtor anywhere. You can get a mortgage from anyone, and pricing and features and benefits for the most part for a lot of different products are pretty much the same. They're pretty much vanilla. So how do you get people to trust you as a person? How do you differentiate yourself when the internet has made products kind of pretty much streamlined? Again, if you search different banks in town, if you work with different mortgage officers, your pricing is going to be really, really close. that no longer is the differentiating factor. And if we're really getting into it, the difference between generations, when we're talking about millennials and younger generations, they will pay a little bit more to work with somebody that they trust, or to work with a cause that connects with their values. It's just a different buying world out there. So how do you as a brand or a business become that person? How do you accelerate that trust factor? How do you, hey guys, so I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. I have to turn these comments off. How do you set yourself apart, right? So I believe that you can do this by telling what I call value stories, right? And I have the secret formula to be able to do this. Now, social media is a super hot topic right now. And to me, social media is just one tool that's available nowadays to be able to help you accelerate the process of building trust and connection. The problem is that social media is designed to connect people. It's not designed to sell, right? Social media wasn't created so that we could sell to people or sell to each other. And we've all seen those like sleazy salespeople, corny salespeople on Facebook or different social media platforms, and nobody wants to be that person, online or in person. Nobody wants to be a sleazy salesperson, right? But by gathering value stories, we can put together a story that's going to build trust and connection. So what is a value story? I'm going to give you my secret formula to creating a compelling value story. Okay, so all a value story are your unique assets plus your customer's specific motivations. Okay, so when you take your unique assets plus your customer's specific motivations, you can create a compelling value story that's going to build trust and connection for you and your brand. Okay, so what do I mean? Let me give you examples of what that looks like. What I see for the problem that most brands make, the biggest mistake that brands make when they're talking about value stories, is they actually only tell half of the story, or they make value statements. Everybody tries to differentiate themselves by saying things like, we take the time to really listen to our customers' needs. How many times have you heard something like that? Or, we take pride in our customer service. Or, we help you save time and or money, right? So these are all things that we've all heard before. But like we talked about yesterday, heroes are smart. Just because you make those value statements doesn't mean that your hero is going to hear them and automatically trust you, right? So the best way is to show. So best way to show it is by value stories, your assets plus hero's motivations. So what does that look like? What you have to do is break these two items down. First, we're going to take inventory of your unique assets. And when I'm talking, what is an asset? An asset is a valuable thing, person, or resource. So when you think about you and your brand and your unique assets, I'm talking about you as a person. What do you as a person, besides your product or service, have to offer your hero? I find that this is hard for people. It's hard for people to look beyond their product or service and think about the specific and unique things that they have to offer. So I have some prompts to help, because I know this is difficult for a lot of people. So think about it this way. What are some of the resources that you have to offer your hero for free besides your product or service? What types of people or communities do you specifically have special connections with? What type of subjects do you have extensive knowledge in? Again, this doesn't have to have anything to do with your product or service. Some examples. What types of people or communities do you have connections with? Are you a hockey parent? Do you have connections to other hockey parents in the hockey community? That's a big deal here in central Minnesota. I live in Sartell. Hockey is a big deal here. Are you a golfer? Do you have connections with different golf courses in town? Do you have a golf team that you connect with? What are your specific personal interests and connections that you have? I'll tell you a little bit about some of my personal assets. I'm a connector, right? I love to connect people. I immediately see the value in somebody, and I can look at what you have to offer and say, hey, like this person over here really needs that. That's something that comes really naturally to me. I am a party thrower. I love to get people together. That's one of my personal assets. I love to throw parties and get togethers and just connect people. I'm a connector. I have young kids, so I have a 6 and a 3-year-old. I volunteer for school things, and I have connections at different central Minnesota nonprofits because I volunteer for them. I have time flexibility because I'm self-employed. Those are all some of my personal and unique assets. So take the time, grab a piece of paper, and write down your unique assets, the things that you have to offer, right? So step 2 is to think about, remember back when we were talking about finding your hero and thinking about different situations where your hero, what makes your hero happy, what makes your hero stressed, what makes your hero hopeful. Think about those situations. Now, when you're looking at your list of assets and you're thinking about your hero's different motivations and their different stages, how do you connect those things? What are the specific assets that are going to be helpful to maintain or to gain happiness for your hero? What are the specific assets that you have that are going to help them feel less stressed? Are there specific assets, unique assets that you have that are going to help your hero in their hopeful stage? This is all meant to help you brainstorm. And if you can think of even specific examples that you can come across, that you've come across in the past, even better. This is all brainstorming and gathering phases. So brainstorming and gathering value stories that connect your assets to your hero's motivation. So I want to give you some examples because I know this is a different way of thinking about value. It's a different way of thinking about gathering stories. So I'm going to give you an example. One of my examples. So my perfect client or my hero is a team leader. My perfect client leads a team of sales professionals, or they are in multi-level marketing where they lead a big team of people who are trying to sell and gain business for themselves. What makes my hero happy is looking good, right? Every team leader, every leader wants to look good. They want to look like they know what they're doing. My hero, what makes them happy is looking smart and having smart people on their team, right? My hero gets stressed when he or she feels like their team is falling behind. My hero gets stressed when their team is not generating leads or not closing deals. And my hero gets stressed when they feel like his or her team is not self-motivated. Those are the things that make my hero happy, and those are the things that make my hero stressed. The next level of my perfect hero, what motivates them is they just want a bigger and more successful team, right? A bigger and better team in the future. That's where they see them. So that is a look at what my perfect client, what my hero looks like. Now, when I pair that with my assets, right, I have a networking group called the Good People of Central Minnesota. It's totally free that my perfect client can send his or her salespeople to, or they can attend themselves. And that helps keep their sales teams motivated. It helps them generate leads, and it helps them to connect. I'm doing these free videos right here, right, for sales teams to learn how to generate leads themselves. I have a training process, and I have a specific process to help salespeople learn to generate their own leads and learn to be self-motivated. So those are my specific assets, and those are specific ways that I can help my hero. So that's just one example of how I tell stories to connect with my perfect hero. Those are going to look differently for everybody because, again, everybody has their own unique assets and their own perfect client. But if you can sit down and make an extensive list of all of your assets, and you can make an extensive list of your hero's motivations, you're going to come up with a huge list of value stories. And all that's going to do is help you accelerate your trust and connection. And if we're talking in terms of social media, you're going to have content forever. That is where your content comes from. Hint, hint, okay? So I hope that's helpful. I hope that makes sense. Please let me know if you guys have any questions about this step. This is a big step. This is your unique value proposition. This is just my process of getting stories out so that you can A, create content, and B, accelerate your your trust and connection process with your perfect client. So tomorrow is the final step, and it is my favorite step because it's action. Tomorrow is your action plan. How we take steps 1 through 4 and create a plan to launch your new brand and a plan to maintain your brand's success in the future. So we're wrapping it up tomorrow. I can't wait to share the action. It, again, is my favorite step because I'm an action-oriented person. You can learn all of this stuff. You can go through all these steps. You can gather your stories and do all of this, but if you don't take action on it and you don't launch this idea, it's not going to do you any good, right? So join me tomorrow for our final live video on the 5 steps to building your brand identity. I can't wait. Let me know if you guys have questions. Have a great one. We'll see you later.